Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Emerald Gates session. Emerald Gates is a green tea from Hunan province. By the end of today's session, you'll understand relationship tea, you'll understand small varietal tea, and you'll specifically have a grasp of Emerald Gates itself. So let's jump into relationship tea. I think that I have not explained this well, because over and over again, there's evidences that it's not clear how we interact with the tea industry. So I want to kind of get that really, really clear. If you're going to do tea business the way we do, you have to have relationships at different levels. Obviously, you have to have a relationship with the farmer. Is that the primary relationship? No. You have to have relationship with agricultural universities. Is that the primary relationship? No. You have to have relationships with the official tea industry. That's both privately and the public part of that tea industry, which is hooked up to the government. This is the primary thing that you must have. So I know that there's the thought that tea business is easy, or tea business has other ways that you can get into. There are other ways, but you can't get into it like we've gotten into it without all of these relationships. There's a rhythm to these relationships that's very important, because China is all about the collective. If you mess up with anybody in the chain, you messed up with everybody in the chain. If you are successful with people in the chain, you're successful with the whole chain. The idea that a person from China can actually reach out and be a relevant part of tea abroad is ridiculous. It doesn't happen that way, cannot happen that way, because the public part of the tea industry that truly governs, because they're connected with the government, if that became a big piece of the Chinese tea industry, they would know and they would control it, because you can't have separate from the public part of it. The public part of the tea industry regulates, from a Chinese customs point of view, what gets out. They also interact with the FDA. So what comes in? And yes, individuals can separately hang a shingle out and say, yeah, come buy my tea. I have this farm or I have that farm. Is that being in the tea business? Not this way, it isn't. It's nowhere near being in the tea business. You can't AI yourself into the tea business versus experience in the tea business. Can't do it. We had a young customer come in this week. It was great. She's 24 years old. She stomped in here one morning, kind of arrested the rest of the conversation, because in a loud voice, and her voice is naturally loud, I am so frustrated with how AI forces me to do this and that in the job application process. And so I said to her, because I happen to be standing right in this position, hey, come on over to the cash register. You and I will talk. Because truly the whole room was brought to a standstill. I said, this is bad. This is bad. I said to myself, this is bad. We can't have that. So I said to her, I said, look, talk to me about what's going on. And so she did. And she said, and I love this statement. She said, the tweeners. And so I had to stop her right there. The tweeners. Remember, I'm not a tweener, so I don't even know what a tweener is. You know, the kids in junior high school and high school, they are already saying no to AI. They are calling it AI makes you stupid. And while I don't subscribe to such an extreme view, AI advances a confidence that is undeserved. And it advances a confidence that makes a person think that they have equivalence to experience, which ain't true. It is simply not true. Now, let me talk about one of you who proved me right. And this was a great example. So Jen reached out to somebody famous in China because she saw a picture that this personality published on their equivalent of this Instagram, probably TikTok. I forget where she saw it. And she noticed in the background, oh, Yixing teapots. Oh, and she wrote to this personality, those are beautiful Yixing teapots, this, that, and the other. Personality, under 10 minutes, responded, hey, this is exactly what these pots are. Jen couldn't have done that without the experience of actually owning a teapot, using a teapot, and seeing the teapots where in here and in other places where she's seen them. This type of hands-on experience gets you recognized. Cannot research yourself into that. You have to have the experience. And so our relationship to the farmers, I usually talk about the farmers, so that shortcuts what the real relationship, isn't it? Because our relationship is as a whole, as in China, it has to be because it's a collective country. It has to be with the officialdom. It has to be with the private elite and then the farmer. Actually, I forgot the scholars, didn't I? The scholars are very important because they know where all the good stuff is. So trying to figure out where the good stuff is, trying to figure out, well, how did we get the good stuff? Starting in the wrong place. The real place is, wow, how are you connected with all parts of this? And how does that expose you to stuff that isn't on the market? I've told this following story before, and it's worthwhile telling it again. Up the street, we have a friend, has a restaurant, served him a special tea. He goes back to China, doesn't tell us that he's going to look for this specialty. And that's fine, because, we don't care, actually. Comes back, though, and announces, doggone, you guys are good. I look for this everywhere. And by the way, this friend is Chinese, speaks real good Chinese, travels all over the country. So there's no problem actually interacting to get what he thought he was looking for. Couldn't find it. That's because he's not part of this collective relationship. You can't just walk in and do a lot of study and do a lot of asking around here and there. You got to ask in the right places. You have to be connected with the collective. If you're not connected that way, this is not like doing business here in America. America is about the individual, right? And it isn't as much about the collective. But in China, it is exactly opposite, and our connection derives from that collective relationship. So I think I haven't explained that well enough before, because I hear things all the time which indicate that there's not a clear understanding of how we have access to stuff that nobody else does. And also not a clear understanding about the differences in grade. Yeah, you can contact somebody, oh, I have this stuff. Well, what grade is it? complicated question. All right. So that's that part of the discussion. Don't let AI make you stupid. Second part of the discussion is Emerald Gates itself. Emerald Gates is a small variety. Well, gosh, as a consumer, I'm not sure I like anything which has the word small in it. I want best or most unique or giganticest. That's what I want. No, you don't. I'm giving you small varietal because that's what you really want. Small varietal doesn't mean that it's small in stature. It means not much of it. Where does it come from? It comes from Hunan. Okay, we know where Hunan is. What characterizes Hunan? When you think of Hunan, what comes to mind? Well, Mao was born there. Congratulations, you remember that? That's really good. How about the very famous place called Zhangjiajie? Excuse me. This is a park. Strange rocks, strange mountains, beautiful park. James Cameron went there and said, I'm going to create Avatar. He probably didn't do it quite as simply as that, but he was influenced by this place, going to it and thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to create something that had some of these characteristics? Beautiful place. The farm where today's tea comes from is probably about 25 miles from that park. So that gives you already kind of a sense of some of the topography. Doesn't give you everything, because if you're an expert in tea, because you've been there and experienced, there's two things in Hunan that you think about when it comes to tea. One is, where's it grown? Woo! That's not that's a very basic question. Not in Hunan it isn't. There's two types of areas where tea grows. It grows in the river basins, not in the rivers, but in the river basins and the lakes. That's where many famous teas grow. And it grows in the mountains, because Hunan has both, lots of both. Are the characteristics of these teas the same in each of these environments? They're specifically not the same. And by the tea industry, they're called out as not being the same. And you get a different characteristic in the teas. The microclimes are different. If you're down in the lowlands, and I mean some of these places are sea level, and you're growing tea, the soil composition is different. The microclimate is different versus high in the mountains. You go to Zhangjiajie or that area, mountains that go up to, I don't know, about 10,000 feet, you're going to get a different microclimate. Hey, what about the soil? Soil is going to be different. This is where today's tea comes from, in the mountains. Second thing, is it, just a regular farmer who's growing this tea? Now, that's a loaded question, because you're thinking to yourself, regular farmer, what the hell is a regular? What the heck is a regular farmer? Great question. So what I meant to say, was it a Han Chinese farmer who's growing this tea, or was it maybe an indigenous peoples farmer who's growing this tea? It's an indigenous peoples farmer, the Miaozu, the Miao people. So what's special about the Miao people? And again, if you aren't connected in China, you have no way of knowing this. You look up, oh yeah, it's the Miao people. And then the following question, well, how do they like to communicate with outsiders? Actually, how do they like to communicate with insiders? I should have asked it the other way around. And, well, they use their mouths and tongues and talk. And that's false. That's not the key way that they like to communicate. They actually, and when you're in the fields and have the experience of being in the fields, right away you guess, hey, every time I go up to these fields, they're singing. Wonder what they're singing about. Well, they're singing about all sorts of things related to the community. And many of you were probably mystified by the video we sent out. Lots of people having fun, our group, and then the head. By the way, the head of this particular farm actually, well, she actually is the head. And whether she's in name the head or not, she is the head. She's the power behind this farm. She makes all the key decisions. You notice she sang a song to one of the customers. This was part and parcel of the meow custom. What's the expectation in return? Oh, doesn't matter whether you have a good voice or not. I mean, it's helpful if you have a good voice. And if you can sing in tune, that's a plus too. But neither of those are required. What's required is you open your mouth and sing. Off tune, it doesn't matter. Bad lyrics, it doesn't matter. That's the way to build relationship. If you are a tea aficionado living in China and you get a friend to introduce you into the farm, and they don't tell you this, and you just go there and you try and interact business. Oh, I love your tea. I want some of this. Okay, here. Are you going to get access to the most special tea that they make there? Not even a chance. Not even a chance. The stuff that's in the vault remains in the vault unless you can unlock the keys. You can't unlock any keys unless you have the keys to unlock that vault. If you don't have the cultural keys, how do you expect to have access? How do you expect to have access? And how do you expect to find that access? Can't find it. Cannot find it. This is what experience brings to you when you're interacting in the tea industry. By the way, this farmer is unique because she and her husband decided early on, with support from the government. Listen to me carefully. With support from the government. In other words, she didn't just wake up one morning, oh, I want to have a completely certified organic farm. She may actually have woken up one morning and said that to herself, but she knew because she's part of community, collective. Better talk to the party bosses. Better talk to the local bosses. See if I can get their support. If I can get their support, what's the benefit? The benefit is she's tied into another circle. And it's a circle of farmers, a circle of academics, and a circle of party people who walked this walk before. They come to our farm. Hey, you got to do these things. You got to do these things. Hey, they investigate this stuff, so you got to make sure you take care of this stuff. This is what the circle does for you. This is what collective does for you. And this is why Chinese in China, whenever they're thinking of doing something, they never get up and say, yeah, I'm going to research my way into this thing and I'm going to do it. The answer is no, you're not. They actually wake up and say, who do I know might be able to connect me? And among those people, how can they connect me to central authorities which will help me who will help me understand the rules? And what about maybe I can get some aid because I am a farmer after all. Can I get a little money for this? Because I'm really going to be doing a good thing for the land. Yes. I'm going to be doing a good thing for people who drink the tea. These are the reasons why people wake up with new ideas and think as fast as they can, how do I get connected to the collective? Now, again, related to how we do business, we didn't just start doing business last year. We didn't start doing business 10 years ago. My relationship with China goes back a long ways. I've lived there and I understand it's collective thinking. You've got to get integrated in that way. If you don't get integrated that way, you can live there for 40 years as a Westerner, and if you can't get it together to start at their starting point, you've lived there for 40 years as a Westerner, and you haven't achieved anything, period. Yeah.
Jeremy comments, fabulous memories for a cloudy Saturday morning. Grand tea, the singing, the picking, and that fabulous woman leading it all. John, great inspiring description and an introduction to tea ambrosia.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeremy. That was fun. Jeremy was on this trip along with several others, and it was fun to have the group. And the feeling of collective, and I think the people who went with us this year also detected that in all of our relationships. It makes for ability to walk into a farmer's life and have the doors thrown wide open and joyfully thrown wide open. No obstacles. How did that happen again? It happened because we understand the collective. We are part of that collective. And that's why we and you, when you go with us, have access. This is the precise reason. It isn't because, oh, it's this famous person or that famous person. No. Doesn't work that way. Does not work that way. So the real takeaways from this, getting into the tea business is fun or sounds fun. Not having those relationships, you'll always be an outsider. Maybe you're an outsider who comes and buys tea. That's okay. The establishment is willing for you to spend money. They're not willing for you to come in and understand the secrets of what they're doing. They're not willing for you to come in and open the vault and take out the really good tea. Whether you speak the language, whether you're Chinese or not Chinese, it does not matter. If you don't start at the right starting point, you're not going to get to the ending point that we have here, period. And so trying to figure out a way around that ain't going to happen. It just simply isn't going to happen. So I want to make this really clear because I've heard so many comments over the first 6 months of this year. And I'm troubled by them because they represent a misunderstanding of what's going on in here and a misunderstanding of what might be achieved in the tea business. So this is a really, really, and this came to mind as I was thinking of this group, because how did we get access to this? Again, we didn't just wander the hills. Hey, these are male people. I can tell because the uniforms are so bright and beautiful. Let's go and have a relationship with them. Wish it were that easy. Actually, I'm glad it's not that easy. I'm glad we do have to be part of the collective. Collective introduced us into this farm. They said, these guys are doing something unique. Go up and spend some time with them. And if you like them, we think their tea is pretty good. We love them. And their tea was great. And so hence we brought them here. Every one of our relationships is based on that. It is not based on some individual who says, hey, bro, I can get you into this, or a tea aficionado group. There are many tea aficionado groups in China, and it's fun to watch from the outside. We don't dare get involved with these people. I'll tell you why. Because they don't go in the way we do. They aren't connected in the ways we are. And they show up at farms, and the farmers, it's hugely funny to hear the farmers talk about these guys. Oh yeah, these guys drove up Saturday. There were 7 of them. They were young and enthusiastic and so forth. And we got out some of our tea, but we didn't get out the special stuff because we knew that they wouldn't appreciate it. But we loved their enthusiasm. That's all good. You don't want to hear that we're enthusiastic. You want to hear that we know what we're doing and that we're going to get you really good stuff. So that's what caused me to think about all this, because again, finding this farm wasn't an accident. It was insiders in the tea industry said, hey, they're doing something special. They're doing something unusual. You ought to go. And they didn't say go buy. And by the way, because we know what the unstated rules are, no matter what, we would have bought a small personal stash for ourselves, even if we decided not to bring it into the shop, because that's part of the collective relationship. And everybody shows appreciation. It goes back to the people who introduce you. God, these guys are very Chinese-like. They come in and you know, they didn't purchase 2 tons, but they did purchase some, and you know, we're grateful. And then the guys the people who recommend it, yeah, they know the rules. They do know the rules. They're insiders, and that's why they get access. And that's why people outside of that don't get access. All right. So, oh, and you're wondering when you're going to get access. Let's get access right now, because, you know, the magic of these teas. Oh, you know what? I'm going to deny you access for 4 more minutes. You have to wait over there for 4 more minutes. I want to talk about one other thing that I didn't quite, sorry about that. This is like, you know, you come to the end of the chapter, you turn to, it's not the end of the chapter. There's 2 more pages. Sorry about that. Alleged health benefits of green tea. Let's talk quickly about that, because I promise by the end of the session, you're going to hear something about that. You're going to hear about it right now. Green tea is the most studied category of tea in China. Does that mean it's the healthiest? Well, right now, if you look at Western literature frequently, oh yeah, it's the healthiest. The footnote to that ought to be because it's the most studied. And therefore they think, oh, it's the healthiest. That's not true. We're finding through research that every category of tea has its own particular set of health benefits. There isn't enough good human testing to say one is better than another. In the West, we've accepted green tea, good for heart health, good for circulation, may be okay for weight loss. Did you hear that? May be okay, not great, okay for weight loss. Oh, may be effective for type 2 diabetes, maybe. We don't have enough information to authoritatively say to you, hey, get your grandmother on 5 cups of tea every day. We know it won't be bad if she does that. In fact, we know it will be good. But is it going to cure diabetes? Very unlikely. Will it completely prevent heart attack, heart disease? Not likely. likely to overall aid health. And there's lots of specific reasons why. And next week, I'll take more time to talk about this. But I just wanted to get this out here because there is all this hype about green tea, and it's deserved through the meta studies, but it's not deserved in the sense that I can make a categoric statement. Yeah, if you drink 4 cups of green tea every day, the meta studies say you'll have 1.4 years without heart issues, 1.4 more years than the average person. But is that, does that say that cures? We're waiting for the magic science to come out. It's not magic science, for real science to come out and give real descriptions of what drinking a cup or 2 cups or 3 cups, of which you're thinking to yourself, that was, oh no, it was exactly 4 minutes. So exactly 4 minutes. Thank you for your indulgence. Now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure, because I'd like to remain in good health, to bring the numinous tea master, Biju, to demonstrate.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we do. Good morning. 早上好. We do green tea. So, yeah, this is Joe. Yeah.
Green tea, Emerald Gates. Yes. So the setup is usual. What you need are 2 mugs and a strainer. That's it. She's going to make additional cups, so this will allow her to cool down the water more quickly. So your setup should be something similar. Remember, she's demonstrating. Timing on this is 3 minutes. Watch her rhythm. So while we're thinking about this same area also with Miaozu produces red tea as well. And you're used to seeing it on our board as Ruby Gates. Now, of late, you've thought that we're completely sold out. So did we. We actually still have a bit. So you will see that return to the menu. It's a really interesting and great red tea. It's not the same varietal, by the way. Yeah.
Jeremy asked, why doesn't Biju have tea animals with the cup setup? In other words, tea toys.
Oh, they
Missing
all
tea toys
ran away
today?
last. You know what happened?
Jeremy knows.
This is great. Jeremy noticed that the tea animals ran away last night. Oh, and here's
Thank God.
Oh, thank God we still have one in reserve.
Frog. Lucky tea frog.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
tea frog.
perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I love this question from Jeremy, because Jeremy has an aesthetic rhythm. Biju is demonstrating a tea rhythm in terms of the water, and Jeremy's demonstrating aesthetic tea rhythm. Love it. All right. So the water is cooled down, 175 degree. 5 grams is what this is. Goes into the heated cup. Water goes back in the kettle so she can control the flow into the cup. Three minutes steeping. Okay, so many of you, because I didn't go through the usual introduction, are wondering, maybe this is newly hybridized, this tea didn't exist before. That would be a wrong thought. This tea has history going back 1700 years. Why did it never become a very famous tea? Well, remember, I called it a small varietal. So small means that it's only grown in a specific area. It is not experienced much outside of the area. So when you think of Dragonwell, you could technically argue that Dragonwell is a small varietal. And I wouldn't reject that argument, even though it fails one part of the definition of small varietal. And the part it fails is it's very famous and it's been experienced all over China. However, what made it famous? It became famous because an emperor, Qianlong, from the Qing dynasty, wandered down there in disguise, went to that particular area, drank the tea, and said, "This is good." Now, when an emperor says something is good, something that is small, varietal, all of a sudden hits big time. That's like after what was the name of the movie that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck first did?
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, yeah. So pre-Good Will Hunting, these two actors are trying to find work. They're not big time. They're small varietal time. They do this movie, all of a sudden they're famous. And now they start to get real work. Well, this is the same thought that if you're recognized at the central court, then all of a sudden everybody, hey, emperor says it's good. I gotta have this. No emperor went and visited where Emerald Gates is. If an emperor had gone there, disguised or not, and said, "Hey, this is good," history would have been changed. Instead of Dragonwell, everybody would be talking about Emerald Gates. Give me the Emerald Gates. That's how good this tea is. Been around for a long time. So from that perspective, it satisfies the requirement, is got history. It actually was a tribute tea for a small amount of time in the Qing dynasty. Timer's gone off. All right. Tea master separated the tea leaves from the tea water. Hey, look, this has color. Oh my gosh. Not only color, it has trichomes in it. Wow. This looks good. We're going to enter the quality arena. It's amazing, It's got a stringency for me, mid-mouth. It's got an aftertaste. You'll tell me what your aftertaste is. By the way, this is the first of 3 greens. So take good notes. I almost have energetics. Let me take a second sip, do taste and aroma and energetics. It's really funny because you look at our boards and you think to yourself, okay, because we're used to thinking that price equals taste. And let me repeat, it does not equal taste. Everything in here, every single tea by category tastes great by the category. You may not like that category. That's okay. I respect that. But compared to other teas in the category in China, these are top line. And I keep forgetting that sometimes because they get lost on the board. And as I'm tasting this, it's like, How did I ever allow this thing to get lost? All right, it's your turn to brew. They don't actually get lost, by the way. It's just that, we keep bringing in so many other teas that sometimes you forget, hey, I like this other tea. And then it kind of, stops being called out because new teas are coming. All right. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. Peter asked what causes tea leaves to sink or sometimes to float.
I don't know. Actually, is the true answer. The in general, here's what I'm going to say, but I'm not sure this is true 100% of the time. Pure needle teas almost always float. And I think, well, I'm not exactly sure. You know what? I better do better research before I pick out an answer and then have to correct myself next week. I'll have an answer for you by next week. But the needle teas in general, the very small leaf teas. So chara, for example, which is a very small leaf, those tend also not to sink. They tend to be on the top. The only teas that really sink from a green tea perspective, Wong's Creation has some sink to it. Yeah, let me get you a more precise answer.
And it sounds like a physics question.
It is a physics question, and I'm embarrassed because at one point I think I had a really good physics answer, and I've just simply forgotten what that is.
就跟当地的品种
Well, yes, that's a fact. What she just said is that it's related to what type of varietal it is, but there's physics involved with this as well. And both points are actually quite true.
I know you said before there's an FDA standard for in terms of reduction of content, moisture content for purposes of shipping, but absent shipping, is there a different moisture level that's sought out, like our green teas generally dried out than white teas, for example?
No, there's a minimum requirement that all teas must meet, and it's not segregated by category. Now, because the ones are so roasted, they obviously have a lot less than 3 to 4% moisture in them. But the non-roasted teas cannot edge up to 4 to 5%, whatever category they are, have to be at that. And by the way, this is really never an FDA problem because Chinese customs is hell on wheels when trying to get tea out of China. If the farmer or the production unit, and it's always a production, it's never a farmer. If a production unit delivers tea that doesn't meet the right standard, they don't just reject that one batch. They reject a whole shipment. It's very ugly. So the Chinese producers are very, very careful about this. Oh, by the way, I'm supposed to be talking you through this and I forgot. All right, so she heated the cup, put the tea in, put the water in the kettle so that she could control the flow. Remember, it's a 3-minute steeping. Okay, yes.
Jeremy comments, mossy colored, tightly rolled green leaves have a slight floral, fruity air, and that aroma carries over to the tea broth. There's a little astringency in the front of the mouth, smooth swallow, warming pleasure.
So, Jeremy, let's start at the end. Warming pleasure from the swallow of this. Smooth feel in the mouth with light astringency, hints of floral in the aroma, which carry over into the tea water. Great description. She talks about it being mossy green, with a lot of hairs. She didn't say hairs, she said trichomes. With a lot of trichomes, it would be really bad if it were hairs. A lot of trichomes attached.
I don't believe she mentioned trichomes, but it's good that you're calling it out. That's lovely. But tightly rolled green leaves, though,
Ah,
and some
yes.
fruitiness also in the
Ah,
aroma, along with the
Great,
floral.
yes, fruity and floral. I love this description because typically when people imagine green tea, so newcomers who come in here, oh, I don't know where to start, but don't start me at green tea because it's always bitter. Really? You just haven't had this. This is not bitter at all. Smooth. Hints of that fruit, implying also a really naturally hint of sweetness as well. Unbelievable. Green tea. So, by the way, this shows how good their process is. And next week, I'll talk about that a little bit in terms of what farmers do to make tea less bitter, because there are some parts of their processing which are very important for them to complete, and how they complete it. And by area, they all do it differently. So some have, because of the varietal, a little bit more almost pungency to them. Some because of certain things and what they're doing in terms of the processing have a little bit less. So we'll talk about that in detail next week. Farmer does have a sense of control to this. All right, time is nearly up, and your timer should be going off right now. You get a chance to separate the tea from tea leaves. All right. So now it's for you to enter the quality arena. And you're looking for levels of astringency, you're looking for aftertaste, and you're looking for energetics. And all of those you'll find in this tea. You know, Jeremy's description, slightly fruity, smooth, warming. Again, as I drink this stuff, it's like, why aren't I drinking this first thing every morning? It's that good.
It is. Wow. 这样
So the other thing you'll notice at the bottom of your glass is all those trichomes that have accumulated there.
Do people in the region drink this tea? Does it sound super special? And
It is super special, and people in the immediate region know to look for this tea. And it's just like in so many of these regions where they have maybe 8 or 9 farms producing, and everybody in the area gets access to the tea. And unless you're connected to the tea industry, you don't even know this exists. And the result is you just wouldn't know to wander into this place because there isn't much public advertisement of it, excuse me, unless you're in the area. And if you don't speak Chinese, you're even worse off because even if there is advertising, you wouldn't know what you're looking at. And so it's It's really interesting because the provincial government, I'm sorry, the county government would like to advertise this more. So there's a there's a contradiction here, isn't there? Because the if you advertise more, that's going to drive up the price. Well, obviously farmers like that the first year. They don't like it the second year if the price falls because people don't continue to drink it. And green tea in China is a crowded market, isn't it? And if you look at the 10 famous teas, in quotes, the 10 famous teas, at least 6 of them are green tea. And so the result is everybody says, well, I'm going to go get my grandpa green tea. And you're thinking, oh, yeah, I better get him something famous, something recognizably famous. Now, if you live in this area, I'm going to get my grandpa this because he will recognize that this is really, really good and that this is really special. But if your grandpa is in Hubei province, no, Hubei's got its famous local teas. So that's what part of what the issue is.
Interesting. Rob comments, the roundness of the scent continues into the taste. There is a kind of deep umami in this tea in both its scent and flavor. It's thick. It gives me the impression of a great depth, but I can't quite make out the details.
Love this description. Depth, umami, roundness. These are all good words to describe this. This does have a thickness to it that you normally may not necessarily associate with green tea. And it's got the depth. You know what? Let me modify that. The depth of flavor. It's not just thick, but it's also that flavor is so deep in this tea, whether you call it umami or hints of fruit, it's there. It's definitely there. Yeah.
Peter says, maybe it's me, but this tea is changing. It led with astringency and crispness, but the honey sweet is coming forth. And I would rather note the juiciness instead of crispness now, but the juiciness is also elusive to me.
So Peter talks about an elusive nature of juiciness. The point I want to emphasize that he brought up, there's 2 things. One, that it's changing, but most specifically, he talked about the honey sweetness of it. Because in the beginning, Jeremy called out a fruitiness. You know what? That first sip was like fruity, but now that I'm into the umpteenth sip, the honey sweetness and the acceleration of a desire to drink faster, implying juiciness, is picking up. I did not get that juiciness right off the bat. I got depth and depth of flavor and thickness. And now, as it cools, oh yeah, I want to drink this thing fast, which implies that juiciness. Great catch, Peter.
Jonathan says, wait, is this green tea? It's not bitter? Seriously. This is so balanced and clean. The cooling and astringency are balanced with sweetness, and the viscosity is pleasing in the mouth.
Great comment by Jonathan. Balanced, clean, and the astringency is balanced by a viscosity. What was the last part of it? Because it's really good.
And it's pleasing in the mouth.
Pleasing in the mouth. Absolutely. And I think Jonathan's paired with Peter's makes a great round commentary because Peter says changing. And I think Jonathan's drunk down enough so that now it's not only that kind of honey sweetness, but it's as he said, pleasing in the mouth, that just cleanliness of this. And his question is, where's the bitterness? This is green tea. Where is the bitterness? There is not any bitterness in this. Great comment. Okay.
One more,
One more.
comment by Peter. The energy was apparent right off the bat. I feel a nice balanced aliveness, and I'm detecting some warmth even for green tea.
I was waiting for a comment like this. Great catch, Peter, because right away I detected what I was surprised to detect. And this will tell you something about this tea. So that warmth that you mentioned, which is a surprise because normally green tea is more about the cooling than the warming. Not only warmth, but Peter used another word, the depth of energy in this tea suggests that we've had this for more than a year. And that would be a fair suggestion because that's what aged tea does. Any style of tea, if you age it, you get depth, you get warmth, and you get actually a different nutritional profile. You're going to ask me something, so why don't I head that off at the pass and say I don't know exactly. But by next week, I will know, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Because you're going to ask me, well, what is that different nutritional profile? I do know some things related to it, and it has to do with age oxidation. And age oxidation seems to produce compounds that create a warmth and again a different nutritional profile. But we'll talk about that next week. And let's see, what am I thinking about for next week? Because, in these chaotic times, don't we need something that brings us all together? God, I wish we just had unity. Oh, you know what? Next week we will have unity. Your responsibilities this week: keep unified, body and spirit. We'll see you next week. Bye bye now.